Okay, so you just tape this down on pages 3 and 4. This just gives you a little information about some of the keys. We've used this a little bit so far, so most of that probably makes sense to you. Some of it maybe we haven't used yet, but I just wanted you to have a reference sheet to be able to go back to if you were, on your own and can't ask questions. This next part, the document and graph settings, those are the things that we've done together. We're actually going to do it together again today because I'm going to have you do something a little bit differently than I did before. How to change the window, we're going to look at that today as well, and then some keyboard shortcuts. So just some reminders because this calculator is so different. And like I said, most of the stuff's kind of intuitive after you use it for a while, but some of the stuff seems kind of random. So just kind of there for you to look at. So if you will, on your calculator, get to this black home screen. You just click the little house if you haven't already turned it on. And we're going to go to 5 for settings and 2 for document settings. I know we've done this a few times. You don't have to do it over and over again, but I'm just like triple checking because I think you all have your own calculator today, hopefully. Make sure that your options look like this. If you change anything, make sure you hit OK or make default if you have that option. And you can click OK even if you don't change it, but otherwise you could just like escape or whatever. But just make sure they all look like that. Are we all good? Okay. So we'll click OK. Then you're going to do 1 for new, and then no. And we're going to add a graph. Okay. So we're going to add a graph, and before we actually type anything in, we are going to actually change these settings from something different. I'll tell you why I'm having you do that. So menu, 9 for settings. Now, I originally had you put float 6 right here, and I want you to change it to float. I had you do float 6 because I thought float showed more decimal places than it does, like almost too many, and you can't see what the heck is going on. Float 6 probably would be fine for us, but what float 6 means is you're going to see 6 digits no matter what. So if the number was 1,587.5578, whatever, you'd only see like the 0.55, and we need at least 3 decimal places, right? The float will let us see that, but it doesn't overwhelm the screen like I thought it did. So, and then auto degree, and then make sure these 2 things are checked. The rest of the stuff that you can't see on my screen is irrelevant. Don't worry about it, but you want that, and you want to make sure no grid. If you have make default, or just okay. Do you have a question back there? You got lost. Okay. On how to get here? Oh, okay. So add a graph and then menu 9. Are you good here then? You good now? Okay, just making sure. Everybody good? Okay, so let's click OK. All right, so now we're going to actually enter a function. I'm going to type it in up here so you should be able to see it. I also wrote it in purple at the top of that board over there, just in case, whatever, you can't see it up here, I click off too fast or anything like that. So x to the 5th, and remember when you get up in this exponent, you need to arrow to the right to get back down to the normal cursor, or you end up typing everything in the exponent, which is exactly what I did when I was practicing because I wasn't looking, I was just typing, and I was like, dang it, I forgot to do that. So don't be me, basically. Minus 5x to the 3rd. Minus x squared. Oh, see, I did it again. After I just told you to make sure to do it. Minus x squared plus 2x plus 1. And then always double check. That's what you really intended. That is what I intended. And then you can hit enter. I'll leave mine up there for another second or 2. Now we're going to go through and find some stuff. I'm not going to give you the paper you're going to write it on just yet because it has instructions on it. I don't want you to get ahead of me on what we're going to do. But if you grab a marker at your table, you can write the information down that we need on your table so that when you get your paper, you'll have it in front of you. And if there's not enough markers or not good markers because they got mixed around the tables, you can come up to this bucket by the door and get what you need. That white bucket right there, get what you need. All right, are we all good? And so when we hit enter, we get this. Yes? Okay. So what we're going to do, now remember we have already done some of the things we're going to do today, but we're just going to go through a big practice again so that we can get more comfortable with this. Remember that it is okay that I cannot see this relative minimum down here. I could still find it if I wanted to. I don't have to adjust my window. When I adjust my window, I do not want to willy-nilly be changing random things. Sometimes in the questions, they give you a hint on what you want. Like for instance, if my domain was restricted from 0 to 10, then I could actually restrict this from 0 to 10 and only see the part of the graph I need. Maybe I know what, the Y value, the highest one I want or whatever. But unless it tells me something or I have some sort of information, I don't want to try to guess at anything. But we're going to change the window so that we know what to do, and I'm just going to tell you what to do here. So you're going to hit Menu. 4 for window zoom. Now, rarely ever do you want to zoom in or out because that causes, like, if you don't know where the center is, you don't know how to do it, weird things happen. If you get your window all messed up and like it looks weird now and you just want it back to like it was, you can do zoom standard and that just puts it back to the default. But we're going to actually change the window settings, so that's number 1. We're going to make our X-min -3 and our X-max 3. And then for Y, we're going to go from -10 to 10. And then once you're done, you can just hit OK. I'll just leave this up here for a second. Okay, -3 to 3, -10 to 10. Pretty sure you changed windows when you use the other calculators. It's the same concept, obviously. And then that gives us a better view. But that's because I knew what to do while we weren't guessing, right? Everybody good with that? Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to find the y-intercept. Now, what does it look like the y-intercept probably is? 1, what did you say? Should I guess off the graph? No, because it could totally be 0.997 or something like that, right? It's tiny, we don't know. But we know, at least we do know that it should be about 1, right? Finding the zeros and the max and the mins, those are options when I'm analyzing the graph. Y-intercept is not an option. But I know that the y-intercept occurs when? When x is 0. So we're going to add a calculator here. We're going to do Control Doc right here, which is add a page if you see that in blue. And we're going to add a calculator. Okay. Now we typed that graph in. What's the title? We typed it in where? It's F what? 1, right? And if you're not sure, you don't have to go back, but I can go up here, see it's in F1. It even tells me when I like highlight over the graph, it tells me that this one is in F1. If you have, if you have more than one, you don't know which is which. So let me go back over here. So I'm here. So if the y-intercept occurs when x is 0, I want to evaluate this function when x is 0, right? So I literally just type in F1 of 0 and hit enter. Oh, and look, it is 1. Okay. So write that down because that's something we need. Y-intercept is at 0, 1. And then we're going to go back to your graph. Now I'm in 1.2, like I'm in this little tab right here. My graph is right here. Now you could use your cursor and come over here and click on it, but I think that cursor gets frustrating sometimes. You can also just do Control Left, and that takes you back a page. Okay. And how do I get back to where where I type stuff in? Well, tab. Okay, tab, and then I can arrow up. So I want to look at this graph because is somebody at the door again? They knock so lightly I can't always hear. Hello, thank you. Oh my goodness. All right, sorry, my watch is ringing too. If the y-intercept occurs when x is 0, when I look at this, if all these x's get zeroed out, all I'm left with is 1 anyway. So technically I didn't have to do all that and it wouldn't be guessing off the graph. I'm just making sure you understand that because if I needed, if it was something else I was doing, I don't necessarily have to do any math because I can actually look up there and know it would be 1. So. All right, so if I want to get out of that, I can just hit escape and I'm good. So the next thing we are going to do is we are going to find the zeros. How many zeros do I have? 3, right? And so I'm going to find all 3 of them. I can't find all 3 of them at once. I have to find them individually. If you get your calculator out, the function we're on, it's written in purple at the top of the board so you can catch up with us. Thank you. You just put that behind my desk. Thank you. All right. We're going to find the zeros. So all of the finding stuff, if it's options, is going to be in menu. I've already changed my window. Trace is pretty much junk. We're not going to trace anything because that's still kind of guessing. But we want to analyze the graph, which is 6. And we want to find the zeros, so that's 1. Now, my dotted line pops up in a different place every time. How it decides where it's going to pop up, I have no idea. But I'm going to find this first 0 on the far left. So I'm going to use my little cursor to move my dotted line over here. And then you click the middle. And then you move it to the other side. Now, you can't go on the other side of another 0. You basically just need 1 0 in your neighborhood. Your neighborhood is the shaded part. And then you click again, and there's your 0. You can write that down. For the zeros, you only need the x values. Anybody have any issues finding 0? All right, so go ahead and find your other 2 zeros. See if you can do it. Just analyzing graph, 1 for 0. You drag that over there. Write it down. Okay, when you find your third one, and if you're not there yet, that's fine, but when you find your third one, it is overlapping, right? And I showed you once before how to move things, and I told you don't always know you need to move it until you need to move it. And maybe you can read those numbers, but we're still going to move it just so we can practice that in case we need to do that. So I'll kind of wait for everybody to get to the point where we're ready to move. Anybody having issues? Are you having issues? You don't even have the right graph, do you? X to the 5th minus 5x cubed minus x squared plus 2. Oh, you have times 2x plus 1. Okay, does everybody have 3 zeros? Yes. It may not be the charger, it might be the calculator. If that's not working for you, come put it on this charger and just grab one of mine. Okay, all right, so let's talk about how to move. I can move either one of them. I think I can grab this one pretty easily, so I'm going to drag my little hand so he looks like he wants to grab it, right? He's making a backward C. Then, once he's over that, I'm going to do Control and click that center button, and it should turn into a fist like he grabbed it. And then since he has it grabbed, I can move it maybe up here, out the way, but where it's still close. And if you couldn't tell, sometimes they're so overlapped you can't even tell which one you're grabbing. You're just trying to move one so you can read them both. Well, if that happens, pay attention to your X values so that you actually know which is which, right? Don't put them in their opposite spots and then be confused about what's going on, okay? And we're going to find a lot of stuff on this one graph today, and we're going to have to move a few things. You're not always going to be finding everything where it's like a huge deal to have to be able to move all the time. It's just, we're just doing it all on one to practice. Okay? Everybody with me so far? We good? Okay, great. So then the next thing we are going to do is, so if I said, okay, I'm going to make up an example, like let's say it's a function where I'm selling shirts and I'm making making money. So my input would be how many shirts I sell. My output would be how much money comes in. Make sense? So if I sell 10 shirts, how much money will I make? That's where 10 is x, right? So I could go back to the calculator and do f1 of 10 and see what my answer is. You agree with that? Well, what if I said that my y-axis represents the amount of money I make in thousands? And I said, well, how many shirts would I have to sell to make $3,000? Right? So that means my y value is $3,000, and I want to know what my x value is. You with me on that? That's different than substituting in for x. If they give me x, I can evaluate it at x, no big deal. They give me y, and I need to figure x out. Well, if I'm here at 3, so that's like 3 or 3,000, and I don't know, now it's flashing, but I basically want to know wherever it hits 3, right? And this is not the best example for this function because there's a whole lot of negative stuff, but just kind of trying to make it make a little bit of sense. So how many times, pretend like the negative, we could make because we could make negative money, I guess, but how many times would 3,000 occur in this graph? If I have, this is 3,000 on my y-axis, does it happen 1, 2, 3 times? Make sense? All right, so to do that, because this is going to come up in some stuff, we know what to do if they give us x and we want y. We go to the calculate screen, F1 of whatever, or F2 or whatever it is. But if I have y, I have to graph it. So I'm going to hit tab. So now it's taking me to F2. And basically, I know what is x when y is 3. So I'm going to put equals 3 and hit enter. And now I actually have a line that intersects that function at 3, or 3,000 if it's in thousands or whatever. And so I want to find each time that happens. You with me on that? Because there's going to be 3 x's. So when I'm going to analyze my graph, menu, 6, what am I looking for? What do you think? Intersection, exactly. Where do they intersect? 4. And then it's the same process. I move my little dotted line, make sure my intersection is the only thing in that little neighborhood there. And there's my first intersection point. So when f of x equals 3, that's your first x value. So you can write that x value down. And then you're going to do that 2 more times. And then you probably want to move your second one so you can practice on that. And if that is not working for you, or you get confused about it, let me know. Okay. Any questions? We're all good on that? Okay. All right, so we have just found, we have 2 functions graphed now. We found those intersection points. We're going to go find some other stuff. Now, if I'm going to find, whatever I'm going to find doesn't require both graphs, then I probably don't want them both on there. You can do it. It's not impossible, but sometimes when that happens, when you have more than one graph on there, it'll ask, like you're used to just going to the left, click, going to the right, click. But it'll ask you like which graph, and you don't even realize it's asking you that. And you're like, what the heck is going on? And it's a hot mess. Now, I also don't want to delete it out. Even though we just basically put in y equals 3 and it's very simple, let's say that we didn't want the first graph. Well, I mean, it wasn't crazy hard, but that was a lot to type in. I don't want to have to retype it if I need it again. So you can turn them on and off. If I hit tab to go back to where I put them in, arrow up to F2, basically, and notice how it's red around there because it's telling you if you don't know which graph is which, like if they're similar, that the red one is your F2 graph. But I want to turn it off, not delete it. I'm going to leave it there. I'm just going to turn it off. So if you drag your cursor, oops, somehow I got to F3, drag your cursor and click on the little check, you can turn it off. So it's unchecked, and now it's gone, and you can just hit escape, and you're good. Okay, you with me on that? Okay, that way you could have more than one graph if you needed for something. All right, now we are going to find the minimums. So let's find our minimums. How many minimums do we have? 2. We have 2 minimums, okay. I have 2 minimums. Oh, and let's pause for a second. I just realized earlier I was going to clarify myself, and then I didn't. When I asked how many zeros we have, technically, this is x to the 5th, right? So I actually have 5 zeros. What my question should have been is how many real zeros do I have? And that's 3. How many real unique zeros? I have 3. So, sorry, I just felt like I needed to say that. All right, so I have 2 minimums. So I have 2 relative minimums. Do I have any absolute minimums? No, because this is a polynomial, so we know that this is going to continue to go down to negative infinity. So we're going to find those. So menu, 6 for analyze graph, 2 for minimum. So I got to move this so that in my little neighborhood, all I have is this minimum. And again, a whole lot of stuff going on in one graph. So I think I would like to move that out the way so I can see it better. And there's my minimum. And for the minimum, all I care about is the x value, the location, not the value of the minimum, but the location of the minimum. So you need that x value. Everybody okay with that? And then you can go ahead and find the next one. Menu, 6, minimum. I don't know what's going on. And if at any time, instead of hitting tab to see your function, you can also just hover over it and it gets thicker and then it shows you what the equation actually is. Right, so I've got 2 minimum values, remember, or minimum locations. I only care about the x values. Then what do you think we're going to find next? Maximums. Let's go find our maximums. How many relative maximums do I have? 2. Do I have any absolute maximums? No, because this is an odd function, an odd degree, right? All right, so menu, 6, maximum. Whoop. Why is it not letting me click on this? Ah! Oh no, oh no. All right. I don't know if y'all saw what just happened, but my graph got wonky. I'm not even sure what I did. But undo, okay? Undo, Control Z on the computer, that's like saves my life most of the time. If you need to undo what you just did because you're not even sure what you did or how to get out of it, Control Escape, you see that little weird arrow that points back? That's undo. That has saved me more than once. Okay, menu 6, maximum. Go, and again, mine anyway are overlapping. So I'll move that guy. And I'm going to find the other one. Menu 6, maximum. I'm going to need to move that guy. Oh, I did it again. I do not know what I'm doing. No, I don't want to delete everything. No. Oh my God, what's happening here? Menu, 6, maximum. Whatever. I don't even know what I'm doing here. But I've used undo twice so far in this. Sometimes the board does not work as well as the actual calculator, but there's my other maximum. And again, thousands of numbers on here, right? You're not always going to have all this stuff on the graph when you have to do it. We're just trying to do it all at once. And then we're going to use this information, okay? Anybody having any issues getting this stuff? Have any questions at all? All right, so I'm going to hand you the next sheet of paper. Now, I want to apologize because I made sure that it was readable. So I did it 2 to a page so you can put them next to each other like the yellow one. But it did not occur to me until last period when we started writing this on there that it makes the boxes you have to write in a whole lot smaller too. So you don't exactly have a ton of room to write this stuff. We're going to make it work, so I do apologize for that, but I put it on pretty paper. Does that make it any better? And I'm going to write them up here too, but I had you write them down because, if I don't stay up there long enough or I'm in the way or whatever, you can figure that out. But okay, we're going to resume. He told me to resume. We're going to resume. It's all good. All right, we are here. This is going on page 5 and 6. Okay. And, okay, now how we write these is, don't start writing just yet because I don't want you to write too much. How we answer these questions is important as well. There is some flexibility on the AP exam with some of this, but just in general, we want to be good math students and do the math correctly. If you were asked for an intercept, that is generally given as an ordered pair. So when we talk about the y-intercept, we want to write that as an ordered pair as like 0, 1, okay? I didn't ask you for the x-intercepts. I asked you for the zeros. So when you're asked for the zeros, that is just the x values. So x equals, and then you can list your 3. And again, I'm sorry that it's kind of small. Negative 2.0358. And if you only wrote down 3 decimal places, that's okay. I like to do 4 because we're not going to try to round, because some of us make up math when we do that, and we don't want to lose points for that. 0.7601 and 2.2259. That's what I got. Okay. And then f of x equals 3. So where did f of x equal 3? It was at x equals, and so all you have to do, like the whole ordered pair is not necessary because the y value is going to be 3 every time, right? So we're going to write those 3 down, negative 1.9072. Three, 2.2852. Okay. Relative minimums and maximums. I'm not asking you for the values. Basically, this is asking you for the location. So all you have to have is the x value. And didn't have as many of these, and you have more room to write, so. So now we're being asked for the increasing intervals. And when we look at our graph, where do we start increasing? Negative what? Infinity. And I increase until I get to a maximum, right? So I'm going to start, so what I write down then is I'm starting at negative infinity, and I'm increasing until I get to my first relative maximum, which is at negative 1.6117. Then I'm going to start increasing again. So I'm increasing, then I decrease. Then I'm going to start increasing again here at my first relative minimum, and I increase until I get to my second relative maximum, right? Okay, so I'm going to start in my first relative minimum, which is negative 0.4569, and I go until 0.3085. Then I'm increasing again, and there's absolutely no room to write, so I think we can write it sideways over here. Again, sorry. There's not even room to write on my big one here. So then I start increasing again at my second relative minimum, and I go until infinity. I'll do this sideways over here. That's 1.7601, and I go until infinity. Now, knowing that there's nothing constant on this graph, right? I'm either increasing or decreasing. That's it. So y'all have your calculator in front of you. I have to flip back and forth. But I don't actually have to flip back and forth, because if I'm increasing from negative infinity to negative 1.6, and then again from here to here, then I...
Students and staff, we're just going to hold the bells for a few minutes, so that way the portables are not exchanging classes at this time. So just hold off, and I'll come back on here in a few minutes to let you know when we're going to read the bell. Thank you.
Then we have to be decreasing between these two. Does that make sense? Like, you can look at your graph and figure that out as well, but you can also do it here. So this is negative 1.6117 to negative 0.4569. Oops. And then again, from 0.3085 to 1.7601. Okay? Everybody good? Notice all of these are open intervals. They're parentheses. They are not brackets. Y'all, on that first quiz, some of y'all had brackets. There was very few people. On the test, lots of you had brackets. There were brackets everywhere. I was like, what are you doing? Increasing and decreasing, yes. You could argue with a mathematician. You're not really wrong with the brackets. But I don't completely think that you know why you're putting the brackets. And then when you put it on concavity, then you're just 100% wrong. I don't care who you argue with, you're wrong. And so because you don't understand, I don't think you understand why you're putting them sometimes, I circled them on your test. If you did it on increasing and decreasing, I did not count it wrong because technically it's not. But then on concavity, it is wrong. And I did take off points for that. So I'm just throwing that out there. Yes, there's time for closed intervals, but let's make sure we understand when they are. Increasing, decreasing, positive, negative, concavity, just open on everything so you don't have to think about it, okay? We good on that? Because I don't want you to get all confused because it just makes it wrong. Okay. Then let's look at positive. Positive is when it's above the x-axis, right? And so that's where we're going to use our zeros. It starts being positive here at the first zero. Then it continues to be positive till it gets to the second zero, right? And if I did brackets here, that would be including the zero, which doesn't make it positive. So these absolutely have to be open as well. So I start at my first zero, which was negative 2.0358. And I go until my second one, which is 0.7601. Then where do I start being positive again? At that third zero, right? And so then that means that this is at, did I use the right numbers? Oh, I did. I was afraid I pulled that off somewhere. 2259 to infinity. negative intervals kind of fill in the gaps there, right? Negative intervals, I'm starting at negative infinity, going until negative 2.0358. And then I'm negative again between these two zeros, 0.7601 to 2.2259. Okay. So we've been finding these intervals with graphs with nice, pretty numbers. What I have found is then, and you can do those things, and then I have found that when we get on the calculator and the numbers get weird, your answers get even weirder, because I don't know, it's like it's a whole different world. It's the same concept, so don't make it more difficult just because the numbers are crazy. Okay? We okay with all that? What questions you got? You think you could do all this stuff on the calculator on your own now? It's getting better, right? It's getting better, it's getting better. That's why I don't want to put it on the test. But all of the instructions, that's basically exactly what we did. So if you do get stuck on anything and what do I do, there's screenshots there for you, all that good kind of stuff. Okay? We good? Awesome. Get your tables erased for me. Yeah.